Welcome to the Living Whole Show. I am your host, Surbhi Joshi, and today we're exploring a topic that affects so many of us, yet we're not talking about it enough in our context. There is definitely a lot of talk outside, so many different point of views, and so much discussion about the gut and digestion. So this has really come up recently in the last couple of years, the mind-body connection, the mind-gut connection, and it's exploding with point of views, products, what you should be having, and all of these things that we're being told and sold. So today, the reason why we're doing this podcast and this conversation, because we really want to go back to anchoring ourselves in trusted wisdom, trusted knowledge that has survived centuries and has helped people be healthier, navigate their health issues, digestive issues. And it's really rooted in deep wisdom. So Ayurveda is something that we go back to and we talk about a lot, and natural ways. And then we also want to make sure that we are backing it up with science. So making sure that we're bringing absolutely accredited, trusted wisdom to all of you so that we're guided and we know what to do and we feel confident. This topic today, we're talking about bloating, where people are feeling this, like they eat food and then there's instant bloating and there's tiredness towards different parts of the day and feeling uncomfortable after eating certain foods. And there's so many things that our bodies are going through, and we're trying to understand and navigate, and the bodies are communicating. So today we're going to learn and listen and understand some of the basics. And to help us do that, we have Dr. Sairupa Krishnamurti. She is a naturopathic doctor, and she is also an Ayurvedic practitioner, which is incredible. We get the best of both worlds. And she's someone who's been practicing in the field. She is part of a clinic, our own clinic. She has been consulting and advising, and she's very active and very supportive in the area of women's health, fertility, navigating the changes that women go through. So it's such an absolute pleasure and honor of having her to talk on this topic. So I would love to welcome Dr. Sairupa, just to introduce you, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Thank you so much, Surbhi. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Excellent. Okay, so let's dive into the questions. Some of these questions our community wants to know. Some of these I want to know, because I honestly, like, I've navigated digestive issues throughout for the past 4 or 5 years. And so this is something that I truly trust and believe that there is a way to feel better. So let's start with the first question, which is really around um, what do you mean by the gut is talking? Like, are you listening? What does that mean? Because we are constantly bombarded with so many different opinions, and there's ChatGPT, and there's Google, and there's our doctor who's saying one thing, and they're different experts. So what do you say when you say your gut is talking? Are you listening? What does that mean for a person?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, yeah, there are a lot of layers to this question for sure, Surbhi, but I think we're seeing much more bloating and more fatigue, increased skin issues as well, more anxiety. And I've seen that increasingly women are realizing that these aren't separate problems. They're often rooted in the same place. And I see time and time again that it's kind of comes back to our gut health, how well we're digesting our food, but also how we're processing our stress and also our experiences in our lives. I always come back to this vision of my grandmother's kitchen, and I wonder if some of you can relate to this as well. So firstly, my parents are immigrants from India, and I was born here. However, I had the privilege of traveling back to India as a child and throughout my young adulthood as well. And my mother lives in Hyderabad. We traveled to my grandmother's place. She lived in this small ashram just near to Bangalore for the majority of my life. And I have this memory of something so different that I didn't really get to experience in the kitchens, right, in Canada. And that was that she had an altar place set up. There was an element of sacredness, right, to nourishment, and that altar remained in the kitchen, in her kitchen. I used to see, large mortar and pestles, and also those flat stones that, were used for grinding. I used to see large vessels that were making your homemade yogurt as well. And I think of this sort of imagery of the grandmother's kitchen, just so different of how we're doing things these days, right? So I think in one generation alone, our food quality, the preparation of food, we're living in extremely different times now, right? And modernization, food corporations as well play a big role on the quality of our food. Pesticides as well and processed foods, and people's digestive health are responding to this. There's more medications being used and antibiotics as well. And not only that, not that like these things are bad. Sometimes they are absolutely needed, right? However, the overuse is a thing that, as a naturopathic doctor and Ayurveda practitioner, I get more concerned about, because as we know, something like overuse of ibuprofen or Advil can create, these issues with gut lining and can thin the gut lining, creating more issues down the line as well. So this being said, also living in a more sedentary lifestyle, this is also impacting, things like our digestive health and the symptoms that are coming up. So a huge piece is dropping into our bodies more to move our bodies and building on this connection to our bodies that's so needed to hear the subtleties that could be coming up in terms of signs or symptoms. So at this time where there's such an increase of, social media information out there, many people are seeking help and understanding, right? And understanding this root, that gut health is a root to so many issues, so many problems that could be coming up. And, I do see a cultural shift happening where people are wanting to not reach for a pill, but kind of listen deeper, right? Listen deeper to their bodies to understand the why of, what could be happening within them.
This is so powerful, Dr. Sairupa. Like, I think a lot of times we take the ownership all on ourselves. And I think it's really good to see that there is a lot of shift that's happening as a society and environment and culture. And that's really, really important to acknowledge that. And there's the not so great part, but in terms of the hyper, like the mass production and everything, but there's also going back to the roots and connecting with sources and that there is this option that we have and that's where I think where Poorna we're really really passionate about providing that alternative point of view that people can have. So I think you already started in that direction in terms of understanding the gut and Ayurveda has always in like the centuries that it's existed it's in its root talked about the digestive health being the root of good health. And in recent times, the research has started emphasizing on it and proving that yes, there is that mind and gut connection, and the gut kind of nourishes, and it's an engine for your health. So help us understand from this, like you have a better picture, like the looking at it from the ancient, the modern, and a whole view from a scientific view as well. So explain it to us in a way that like how does it work in terms of like how does our digestion work to provide support so that we have a general understanding of why science and Ayurveda emphasize on the gut health. Why is it important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to look at, firstly, how Ayurveda explains digestive health. We talk so much about something that Ayurveda refers to as Agni, as the digestive fire, Jatara Agni. And Agni is the intelligence of the body. It transforms everything that we take in, food, experiences as well, even emotions, and all of this into nourishment when the Agni is functioning well, when the digestive fire is well balanced. We can digest well, we absorb nutrients well, and what's left over is eliminated efficiently. So whatever is not needed when the Agni, the digestive fire, is working well, it's released as a waste product, as either stool or urine, even sweat as well. However, when Agni is low, when it's weak, or if it's imbalanced, food doesn't fully transform. It can linger or even ferment within the body, and it creates something that Ayurveda refers to as ama, as toxin buildup. And this toxic residue, it can create more inflammation in the body or stagnation in the body. And Ayurveda teaches that ama is the root nearly of every chronic disease, every imbalance, because it can clog these subtle channels through which the nutrients or hormones or even emotions are meant to flow freely. So, when we say that digestion is the foundation, the root of health, as Ayurveda practitioners, when we say this, we don't mean to, change your diet to some level of unattainable perfection. We mean more so, how well are you transforming everything that comes into your life? Right? How are you processing the experiences that you have? How are you supporting your Agni, your digestive fire, to burn bright and stay sustained and not overburn, but also not to go dim? And are you offering enough inspiration or kindling to this Agni, to this fire? In Ayurveda, we say that protecting your digestive fire will protect your longevity and also, support you in terms of healthy aging. So when we talk about Agni, we're talking about the enzymes of the body as well, and how these are processing the foods that you're taking in and breaking them down into the tissues of the body. And so we'll come to that more later as well.
This is brilliant, and you explained it in a way that I think most of us will be able to digest. And looking at it from a scientific perspective, is there any difference in terms of when, like, from an Ayurvedic view, I think a lot of the people who are familiar with it, I think we're able to understand. From a scientific point of view, what do you think has shifted, in your opinion, that they explain that this is something that is important when it says mind-gut connection? And like, what are some of the things that you have come across just from seeing the point of view that helps some of the logical-minded folks take it in
Yeah.
better?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this connection between the mind and gut. So if we're looking at something like an example of, acid reflux, this is just something I commonly see in practice as well. Um, it's interesting because Ayurveda would also say there could be some pitta, higher pitta, which also could reflect some irritability or even anger that may be repressed in some way. So, from a scientific standpoint, yes, there may be some stress associated with this experience as well. I see time and time again that women that are experiencing acid reflux are able to note the pattern of when it's coming up towards a higher stressful period. And with that, we're also seeing that Ayurveda says, yes, stress can play a role, repressed emotion can play a role as well. And then, yes, we'll talk about other, habits around this that can aggravate something like acid reflux. But there itself, it shows this mind-body connection that Ayurveda has always recognized, and that, yes, science is also noting as well.
This is really, really helpful because I think there's so much research that's currently happening. There's so much research around women's health that didn't exist before, and it's incredibly insane to imagine that a lot of women are struggling to get the right support and to know how to navigate any condition. So this is really helpful at this time to know that there are ways that if you're not getting an answer from your doctor, yes, you should listen to what they're saying, but also you have the authority and autonomy and the agency to find solutions that work for you. I want to know because I think it's such a powerful place that the knowledge providers like yourself, you're able to see the ancient ways of practicing gut health. And then we live in modern times. I think you touched upon some of the points. So a lot of the things that were done in ancient times, it's very difficult to practice the same way. We don't eat the same way. We don't have the same lifestyle like we talked about. So I would love to hear from you. I think the myths, I think that we want to talk about for sure. But let's talk about like the translating of that ancient wisdom into modern context of what are some of the things that we like they're almost non-negotiable that we need to bring into our lives right now and um, the way that we've evolved, how do we make sure that we're still doing the things that support our health from an Ayurvedic perspective? What would be something that's still possible? We like I wish we had our grandmothers to make us fresh food. Well, we don't. We're on the go, hardly sometimes
Yeah.
like skipping lunch. So how would you say some of the things that you would definitely say we should bring in, and then we'll go about what are some of the misconceptions that are out there?
Sure. So, um, firstly, like just to kind of simplify things, there are some really wonderful suggestions that Ayurveda would recommend just as a starting point that can be extremely helpful for bringing balance to the digestive system, balance to the Agni. And the number one thing that I would suggest is starting to observe your body, right, in every way that you can. And one of the best ways to do that is noting if you're going to the bathroom in the morning, right? So going to the bathroom, observing that you're going, hopefully, before you have your first meal, maybe even before you have your first drink as well. So it should be like the first thing that you do, expelling and, getting rid of the toxic waste from, the day before. And there's ways that Ayurveda would suggest, supporting your body to do that, supporting the elimination process, such as like having a warm drink in the morning. So this is so simple and, something that I feel like is really doable for most people. However, if that's not happening, then of course, further support would be needed and can bring much more balance to the digestive system as well, and to support the Agni overall. When we're eliminating, we're also helping to balance the hormones as well, because then we're helping to bind to extra xenoestrogens or environmental estrogens that our body can absorb and take in. And we can eliminate them through the stool. It can actually bring much more of harmony to the hormonal system, especially as you're kind of entering more into perimenopause or midlife years as well. So that's a major thing that I recommend. Another piece is really spacing out your meals, like spacing out your meals to 4 to 6 hours, but it really depends on the dosha type too. So this is where more personalization would be very helpful to understand. Because yes, I do see, some women that might be intermittent fasting or skipping their first meal of the day, and it might actually create more harm or disturbance for their system. Right? And so, getting more counsel on this can be really helpful. What I recommend is, seeing when your appetite comes in, right? So knowing that your appetite is, let's say, at 11 o'clock might give some insight to when to start eating for the day. However, if you are hungry in the morning, it would be important to fuel yourself. So eating consistently, having your biggest meal midday is very helpful to protect your acne, and making sure there's about 3 hours before your last meal of the day and before you go to sleep at night. So those foundational pieces, really getting into a rhythm and ritual, routinization around your food can do wonders for protecting your digestive fire and your acne.
Yeah, those are incredible. It's like the golden rules that just striving for that consistency, eating at the same time daily,
Mhm.
and then trying to understand what's supporting, what's not, and then making sure that you're staying consistent. I think those are things that are, I really hope as I get older and I'm like this old lady, and if I've been doing things right, hopefully that I'm in a better place with my digestion and healthier and
Mhm.
happier. I think that goes hand in hand. So I think one thing I'm really curious about is you get a lot of patients. What are some of the common things that you're seeing as issues that they're coming with?
Mhm.
And what are some of the common things that they tell you, that the misconceptions that they've heard and they've like been like
Mhm.
absorbing from different sources?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I I think that some of the misconceptions I tend to come across because yes, women dealing with bloating or with acid reflux, as I mentioned, constipation or irregular stool, those kinds of things. Some of the misconceptions I come across are around actually elimination diets, like removing large food groups. And this could look like removing all carbohydrates from the diet, or removing it could look like removing gluten completely from the diet or removing dairy completely from the diet, which can be helpful for some people. However, always my concern is around the disturbance of the relationship with food, and actually how that creates also like a disturbance with the mind as well, and creating more stress. So, what I work with my patients on is actually really working on that relationship with food in a positive way, not necessarily feeling guilty around the choices that they're making, but making healthful choices in awareness to what their needs are. Right. So that's one misconception, is that elimination diets or removal of food covers most bases. So it may not, right? The other thing is a naturopathic doctor, and because I work with patients that might have been working with other naturopaths in the past, or maybe they've received this guidance online or through ChatGPT or through, let's say, their medical doctor as well, which sometimes can be useful, of course. However, not all supplements are meant for everybody, right? So for me, I might want to inquire more as to why they're not absorbing the nutrients. Again, coming back to the acne piece, supporting your digestive health and ensuring that you're eating in a way for you, for your time in life, and for your dosha type, can actually enhance your nutrient absorption, right? As much as we can, as much as realistic for you and your acne type. So that's another thing, is the supplement piece. Another misconception I just wanted to highlight is that sometimes, with chronic conditions, we might be using a laxative long term, right? And so this is something I see because I like to do repair work, right, for people that might have been using laxatives for a long time, and slowly get them off of it. Because Ayurveda provides us with a lot of guidance on how to strengthen and tone the colon as well, so that hopefully there's no use for conventional laxatives, right? So we might use herbal tonifiers or rejuvenatives, again, depending on you and your constitutional type, but the use of laxatives or colonics, things like this, these are misconceptions, or sometimes I find to be actually damaging longer term to the system. Yeah, so those are a few.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful because I think that kind of helps us understand and generally speaking, what are some of the things that are happening? Um, I also find that a lot of the doctors, there's still the doctors that you go to, the general physicians, and they are still not open to bringing in diet as like one of the primary things for healing certain symptoms and issues. But there are a lot of doctors who are becoming more and more open to incorporating the approach. Um, what has been your biggest challenge when you're helping your clients? Because the clients can be very confused if they're trying to navigate the mainstream healthcare and then they're also getting opinion from someone that they trust and believe in. What are some of the things that you feel like people struggle with when they're trying to like juggle if there are different opinions? What is the most common
Yeah.
thing?
Actually, Serbi, you reminded me of something that I wanted to mention that's really important. And this is protein, the conversation around protein, because it is such a huge piece that a lot of conventional doctors might be sharing more information about, but also just around, what information might be out there on social media as well. Um, so, so protein, right, from that Ayurveda lens is something that, I really take caution with, right? I take more caution with because a lot of women are given that information these days that increased protein is necessary for every woman, right? But however, from that Ayurveda angle, we're looking at your individual constitutional type and then also your Agni balance, right? So your Agni balance might be slow, or it might be excessive or high, or it might be slightly irregular, right? And based on that, we would decide on, your protein needs, because if it is low, if your Agni is on that lower end and you're not digesting well, then adding increased protein could create more disturbance and actually more toxic buildup. And so that's why, in my practice, the way that I work with people, it's always about establishing a good rhythm with Agni first. So increasing Agni and making sure that it's more in balance in the ways that I mentioned, ensuring that you are eliminating regularly, your appetite is quite strong and regular and consistent. And on top of that, your protein needs, right, based on your constitutional type. So how much you might be using your body as well, and what phase of your life you're in, right? So are you in a postpartum phase, or are you perimenopausal, in your midlife phase? What kinds of responsibilities you have also matter, right? In terms of thinking of how to shift your diet towards something that is more, that requires more Agni to process or absorb. Because yes, from that protein conversation, your Agni should be, quite efficient to be able to take in extra. I wanted to give a little example there, and that might kind of spark some thoughts or even questions later. But, I did work with someone that was consuming whey protein on a regular basis. So whey protein is a protein from dairy, right? In quite a large amount, right? So it's separated from the dairy, and then, you would take it in a powder form, add it to a smoothie. Some people might add it to a hot beverage or something like that as well. And this person was actually dealing with a lot of eczema, a flare up after 6 months of starting that whey protein. And so, just noting that their Agni was low, right, and they weren't able to process that whey protein, I had them remove it. And that actually helped to clear their eczema. So it's interesting to look at, what a person might be taking in and, based on what symptoms they're also experiencing or what could be coming up for them, and then making adjustments accordingly. So it does take, conversation, consultation, maybe self-observation is one of the most foundational pieces to looking at your own digestive health.
I think that is brilliant that you mentioned self-observation and noticing, and if there are issues, maybe maintaining a log, and that can support when you have a conversation with your healthcare team and
Yeah.
be more aware of your own body rather than being so caught up with all that we need to do. So I really want us to talk about the mental load that women carry, like I think our grandmothers had their own challenges, and our mothers, their generation had their challenges. But I think as women in today's times, I think all of us here can speak. We're like all of us and I can notice some of people who are from our community, that different stages of life that they're in, you're in different phases, and your health has its own season. So the fact that we're dealing with so much of that mental load that we carry and the responsibilities of just being someone who um, generally cares, and you take on more than you need to. And it's very hard for us to not think about a lot of the things that we care about. That I feel ends up as stress more for a lot of women. That I feel is something that a lot of women are navigating right now, with overwhelm and this constant kind of like nagging responsibility and that expectation that even if you try to make peace with it, there's like, oh, there's something that I'm not doing that I should be doing, when you're doing a zillion things. So tell me about bringing these principles that are so beautiful, and that are so deep and holistic, and that really kind of foster this relationship that you have with yourself, of self-love, in this whole chaos that we live in the world. What are some of the things, and you're someone who has a full life, you have beautiful children, more than one. So tell us a little bit, like from your point of view, but also like what would be your tips in terms of how do you navigate the this full plate that we carry?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll share some information about that. And yes, I do have three kids. You might hear one of them. I just wanted to mention that earlier as well. Um, but yes, I would say deeply and often more than food itself, Ayurveda actually considers our mental and emotional state to be part of digestion and not separate from it. So when we eat while we're stressed or distracted or rushing, then of course our nervous system can impact our digestive function. So this is a really big place to note. And for example, when I work with parents, it's a different story a lot of time, because many of us might be, especially with younger children, we're really trying to get a rhythm going in the morning. It can be challenging in the morning, I find, for a lot of people, for sitting and eating. And so for parents, for mothers in particular, I always ask, please just take one breath before you put food in your mouth. If possible, take three, right? So sitting with your body and starting to just note how you're feeling and seeing if you can really just relax or drop into a calmer state before your meal. And if it's not all of the meals, one meal a day, choose that. And that's a really beautiful starting point. And that's what I do as well, as, someone that is, quite busy in terms of my family life. And the purpose is we want to shift from more of a fight or flight nervous system response and drop more into a parasympathetic nervous response, because that state is more of the state that governs digestion. And so if we are in a state of nervous system unrest or activation, then this might guide all of the blood flow outside, towards other areas of the body, and not towards the gut where it should be. This can drop Agni even further, right? So when we're eating in a stressed way. So noticing this piece around stress, and even if it's just 3 breaths before your first meal or your midday meal, this is ideal. I have also really observed with the patients that I've worked with, especially around chronic bloating and more of the irritable bowel syndrome towards constipation or towards even diarrhea type. So both of these, that the stress component, once that is maybe observed more, and there's more tools used towards bringing a sense of calm, whether it's the morning, the night, before meals, just something that is routine in their day. That really takes an impact. It really shifts things for the digestive health. I often will have the patients I work with make a personalized masala tea, right? So using different spice blends that are for them. And they'll brew it in the morning with intention, keep it in a thermos, and then sip that throughout the day. And that also, will bring a lot of calm as well to the digestive system. So those are, two simple things that I really encourage from, to bring balance to more of this kind of stress or overwhelm that many of us experience. Yeah.
We live in an instant generation. We do want quick results. We want fast, like the pill that is going to solve everything for us. But I think it's not really the the instant results that last or supportive that we see when we come back to this wisdom. So tell us a little bit in terms of what are some of the things that, like you talked about things that you would encourage, maybe a quick recap, and then any last sort of uh, absolutely like the practices that people can apply right away. So something that we can start doing today, simple, easy, and then hopefully that people are going to start to feel better sooner, not instant, but definitely soon enough. What would be some of those practices as quick tips that you would think that people
Yeah,
can start using?
absolutely. So, one thing I really wanted to take mention of is also just around, making sure that we're protecting our Agni. We're also protecting our Ojas, right? Our subtle essence. And this fine essence is also a resiliency to stress as well. So when we protect and, nourish our Agni, then we are also protecting this strength of Ojas. And we can do that in so many different ways. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things that can be so easy to incorporate for your acne as well, and maybe things that you could consider even using within the next few days, right? So the number one thing is, the way you start your day, right? So rather than eating something right away, rather than even drinking coffee right away, is drink something like a hot liquid with a little bit of spice in it. So again, this would shift or change depending on you. However, something that's really general is that you could take a cup of water and drink that, right? So after you brush and scrape your tongue, drinking this, yeah, cup of hot water. And this usually will help to flush out any excess. So support your bowel movements if you haven't gone yet, for example, and also just gently bolster your acne for the day, right? So something very simple. And then coming back to tongue scraping. Okay, so tongue scraping is essential for acne support as well. So in one of the major texts of Ashtanga Hridayam, so in this text, they actually recommend scraping the tongue 7 to 14 times. Yeah, and so, using what I actually typically use is just a stainless steel tongue scraper because it's the most accessible. However, yes, there's many different types of tongue scrapers that could be accessed as well, different metals. But stainless steel, and then going from back to front of the tongue gently. And so, yes, going in a range for about 10 on average, right? And you're very gentle with those strokes. But the purpose of this is not only to release toxins on the tongue and not only for oral health. According to Ayurveda, you're also helping to stimulate your Agni. You're stimulating the entire digestive system. When I have people do this, it's incredibly supportive for things like bloating and also a lower appetite as well. Yeah, so I encourage that. And you're also having an opportunity to self-observe your tongue, right? So you're looking at your tongue, you're seeing the coating. And yes, while it's normal to have a little bit of a white coating, a slight white coating on the back of the tongue, if you are noticing that you're having a thick white coating on your tongue, or it could come in different colors as well, but of course we won't have time to get into all of those details today. But if there is a thicker coating, ask yourself, what did I eat before? What did I eat the day before? Right? And this is a really interesting tool to kind of look at or observe for yourself, because you might find that you either ate something heavier or maybe you didn't rest well, right? Then those kinds of things can impact the tongue coating. Maybe your immunity is off as well. So maybe you're fighting something, right? So those simple things I really, very much encourage. And then one more thing I wanted to mention is see if you can incorporate moving after meals, right? So moving could be 100 steps. So this is recommended again in Ayurveda, or even just like taking a walk, a gentle walk. Of course, outside, as it's so beautiful, is lovely and very supportive. And if that's not possible, what I also recommend is laying on the left side of your body. Right? So laying on the left side of your body activates the Surya Nadi, so the right-sided channel of the body, and actually can really impact your digestion. So if you're feeling a little heavy after meals and you try to lay on your left side, just again, like, self-observe, notice how this might make you feel lighter after 5 or 10 minutes. And so those are just a few simple techniques I wanted to share.
Those are absolutely great. And I think everybody here and who's listening, we can definitely start applying. It doesn't have to be, and that's the thing that like even at Poorna in our community, we emphasize is like there's so much beauty in so many different ways that you can apply, but just start with one. Just start with that warm water in the morning, make it a ritual, add something that really kind of nourishes you. I have my obsession with saffron right now, so that's going in my warm water in the mornings. I want to, before like I think finish, I want to touch upon a lot of women struggle with weight, and there was this incredible obsession with medications and Ozempic, for example, and all the like this affects a lot of people because they're like, okay, this pill can actually help me with this issue that I've been dealing with for years. And then we have the Ayurvedic view. There are
Yeah.
different options, right? So what would you say is something that like would be your point of view when it comes
Yeah.
to for women
Right.
dealing with weight?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's such a big conversation because, of course, this does come to reflect on many different aspects of our life. It could be something deeper like metabolic health or insulin resistance or even pre-diabetes. These are conditions that are so common for our South Asian population. Um, and it also reflects, our culture, right? So, just the body image in our culture and so on. However, if the desire is to lose weight, and I do work with women on Ozempic, however, that's also shown, like they've been prescribed this from their practitioners, and I've been able to really see how it's impacting their digestive health. I will say what I've observed very honestly is that because they're mimicking a satiation kind of peptide in the body, right? So this taking this type of peptide will dim down your Agni completely. So you won't have an appetite, right? So you'll completely like lose that internal sort of gauge. And this is the concern I have. And so if this is something you're exploring, I would really recommend, if you haven't yet, to, just start with some of the things that I've recommended today. Especially with spices. Working with spices can really be incredible. And it is a misconception that they don't do much. They do so much. They do so much for kindling Agni and supporting with clearing the toxin buildup as well in the body and supporting metabolic health. So working with a practitioner for further guidance is something that I would really encourage before going for Ozempic or before going for any of these GLP-1s. And yes, and then, there are supplements I even go to before reaching for, that as well. So, there's things like inositol or berberine. Those are things that I often will use in my practice when I'm working with someone that's really needing that extra support for metabolic health. And additionally, there are studies that are showing that after the use of those medications, such as GLP-1s, the weight tends to return, right? So this is, again, showing the lens on a bigger topic, right? So when we're, working from more of a root perspective, relationship to food, food habits, rhythm, and ritual, right? So all of these should be the foundation. Right. So of course, this is my perspective as a naturopath and Ayurveda practitioner, but yeah.
I so appreciate that, like taking that on. And I think we need to have these conversations because there are so many women who are navigating this alone and they're trying to figure
Mhm.
out. But I think it's really important to know that there are different ways that you can go about the same results and feel good
Mhm.
about it and feel um, that satisfaction that you want to achieve for yourself in life and in food.
Mhm.
I want to go on for longer, but we do want to wrap up because we want to go into our private community and ask questions directly to you. So the last question that would be coming from me is, according to you, what is a wholesome life? What does living whole mean to you um, with all that wisdom that you have? And I'm sure that there are challenges too. It's not all easy. So would love to hear what would be.
It's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that question so much, Surbhi. Yeah. Well, I just want to say, firstly, like I'm so grateful to be a forever student and practitioner of Ayurveda and to be working with naturopathic medicine as well. It's been such a gift to my life. And yeah, I'm truly grateful to have Ayurveda as well as part of my family's life, as I'm raising children too. And I love how Ayurveda um, reminds us and speaks of the five sacred elements and how they exist in the macrocosm and how that those elements also exist within us, right? And sitting with this Pancha Mahabhuta, the five great elements, reminds me of wholeness in such a beautiful way. It reminds me of interconnection with the environment and with everything in our environment, and also with one another. Yeah. So I also believe, working on our own healing mind and body is not to achieve like a new self, right? So it's not that, of course, but to uncover the layers that may be creating obstacles to this wholeness that's always there, and to remember this wholeness that, we already are, and to love and accept ourselves as we are. Yeah. So that's a little bit.
Oh my God, I got goosebumps. This is
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A huge thank you, Dr. Sairupa, for sharing your deep wisdom. I didn't follow any of the questions that I sent to you, and I apologize, but you handled them beautifully. And I think you really, really helped support that self-trust and guidance, and then knowing that there's so much wisdom that's available. Finding the right person who can guide you is an important part of it, but also there are so many things that we can do from the right sources, applying those to our daily life. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for your sharing your wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Sairupa, for this
Thank you so
conversation.
much, Surbhi, for holding this space.
Thank you.
Mm.
So, I am so happy that you stayed with this conversation, and I am so happy to share with you that there is so much more that is available that you can start with right away. We do have a lot of resources on our website, POORNAWellness.com, that you can share and visit anytime. We do have a free WhatsApp community so that he is available for the person who wants to stay with like-minded women and like-minded resources. So all you have to do is send a message to Surbhi at POORNAWellness.com, and I'll make sure to have a conversation with you and add you to the community. And this is absolutely free. And then we do have programs and retreats that are coming up all year round. So make sure that you sign up for the newsletter, and that way you will know what's going to come up next. And hopefully, this is going to be something that helps you with your journey. With that, we are going to now go into our private community. We have a beautiful group that is waiting to ask questions, and we only do that in the private space. That is absolutely 100% confidential, so you can be yourself and ask anything to our wonderful expert for today, our gracious expert, Dr. Sairupa. So thank you to everybody who joined, and if you do want to connect and become a part of the community, please reach out. We're more than happy, and thank you for tuning in.